Today I'm going to show you how to sew a really easy book sleeve. It's a pouch for a book. It comes in 4 different sizes, so you can make them for small books, larger books, your e-readers, absolutely anything can fit inside these with the 4 different pattern sizes. And the links for the pattern pieces that you can print off at home are linked below in the description box. So go ahead and print those out and come sew along with me. I am making the small size book sleeve pattern. Again, it comes in 4 different sizes. So I got those cut out and I got my fabric cut out. On the outside of my main fabric, I added one-sided fusible fleece for structure. And if you wanted to quilt the outside of your book sleeve, you could go ahead and do that part now in whatever kind of design you wanted to. And then you would go ahead and cut the lining pieces for your book sleeve and the 2 pieces that you need to make the ties. We're going to start by quickly making the ties first by folding your fabric right in half long ways with the right sides of your fabric together. So the pretty sides of your fabric should be kissing. Go ahead and iron it flat, and then you're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew it all along like I'm doing here, but leaving the short straight edge open. Starting at the slanted part of your tie, you're going to go ahead and put that under your sewing machine's foot. I like to line it up right with the edge of my fabric as my guide to sew along, and then you're going to sew all the way around this except leaving that short end open like I mentioned before. Once you get to your corner, leave your needle inside of the fabric, lift your presser foot, rotate your fabric the way you're going to sew it in that direction, and then continue sewing all the way down. We're going to do the same thing for both of our ties here. Now that I have that sewn, I'm going to go ahead and go to each of my corners here at the top, and I'm going to cut off that excess fabric. You want to make sure you cut right close to your stitches, but not going through your stitches. And we do this so when we flip this right side out, those corners lay nice and flat, and they poke out the way they're supposed to. Then the easiest way to turn these 2 right side out is to go at the top here and separate your 2 pieces of fabric on the 2 sides. Go ahead and push the top end inwards just a little bit. And then I get a chopstick and I use the fat end of that chopstick. I put it right into the top, and then I just glide the fabric right over my chopstick, and it will flip it right side out quite quickly. If you don't have a chopstick, just use a pin or something along that nature. I also use that same chopstick to go ahead and poke out my corners, making sure not to push too hard because you could poke right through the stitches, and then I smoothen out my seams. Once I've done that with both of them, I'm going to go ahead and press it flat with my iron, and then you're done making your ties. What we want to do next is attach those ties to the front and back of our fabric pouch. So you're going to get your outer 2 main pieces, fold them right in half, and make a tiny slit or a mark with a pin right in the middle so that you find the mid-center point. You're not going to see this when you're done sewing, so just a small slit, just good enough for you to see it is all you need. Then you're going to get the raw edges of your ties and find the middle point by folding it and line up those 2 middle points right here like I'm doing now. Pin or clip that in place, and then you're just going to sew a small basting stitch really close to the raw edges. A basting stitch just means a stitch really close to the edge so that it can hold these 2 fabric pieces together without it moving around. It won't show in your finished project, don't worry. So then you're going to go ahead and get the ties out of the way towards the middle and away from any of the side raw edges. Do the same thing with the other side. And then you're going to lay them with the pretty sides of the fabric kissing. After you do that, go ahead and pin or clip all the way around this except across the top, because we're not going to sew the top of this closed. You want to leave that a big hole opening right there at the top. So here's what it looks like with it all sewn together. I left the top completely open, and I'm going to go ahead and go to each of these 4 corners and cut off the extra seam allowance at the corners. Again, we do that so that way we can poke those corners out without it being bulky. Now go ahead and flip this right side out, and we're gonna smoothen out all of our seams and poke out the corners. If you wanna iron it flat so that it's nice and pretty, you can also do that at this point. Then you wanna go ahead and get the lining pieces, and we're gonna sew it just about the same way, except we're gonna leave the whole opening across the top, and we're gonna leave a 3 to 4 inch hole across the bottom as well. You do that so that way when we attach these two pieces together, we'll be able to go through that hole to flip it right side out. And remember, the pretty sides of our fabric should be kissing right now. So the right sides of your fabric should be together. What you're seeing now is the wrong side of the fabric. I know you can't tell because it's white, so I just want to make sure to make that clear. Using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I went ahead and sewed across and leaving that opening there at the bottom, and I didn't sew across the top. I went ahead and clipped all 4 of my corners like we did before as well. Now you're going to get your other piece that we already sewn, the outside of your pouch, get your ties out of the way, and then slip that pouch right inside of the lining. And again, the lining, you are looking at the wrong side of the fabric on the outside. So your pretty sides of the lining and your outer pouch right now are kissing. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to line up your side seams and pin or clip those together on both sides, and then you can work your way around the rest of it, pinning or clipping all the way around the top. Because then we're going to take it to our sewing machine, and again, using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're going to sew all the way around the top. Here's how I like to sew this part. I remove this part of the sewing machine, and then I go ahead and slide this right over top of the arm of my machine, and I like to start sewing somewhere near a side seam. Make sure you always start with a back stitch and you stop with a back stitch. Go ahead and sew all the way around this. Here's what it looks like when you're all done. Then I just go to that whole opening that we left down here at the bottom of our pouch, and I flip this right side out. Go ahead and smoothen out your seams, and then we are ready to close that whole opening at the bottom that we left. To do that, you just put your fingers right inside the hole and press it apart, pull it apart so that the fabric faces inwards and it matches the rest of that down here. And then just sew that closed right close to the edge like I did here. Once you've done that, go ahead and separate your fabric, and then you're gonna push the lining right inside of your sleeve. And then when you're going across the top of your sleeve, go ahead and match up the seams so that you don't have the lining poking outside of your pouch. I like to go ahead and press it with my iron to make sure it stays put. And then I take it to my sewing machine, and we're gonna top stitch around the entire top. To do that, I like to do it this way, lining it up with this part of the foot of my sewing machine, going all the way around. If you're a beginner sewer, make sure you use those guides on your sewing machine to top stitch this. But you don't absolutely have to do it if you don't want to. And that was the last part of sewing this super cute book sleeve. It sews up in about 20 minutes or so. It's very fast and easy and beginner friendly. And again, the 4 different pattern sizes that are included, extra small to a size large, fit e-readers, Bibles, books, big, huge school books. So use them for whatever you want to use them for. Leave me a comment below. Tell me what you would use this book sleeve for. And thank you so much for watching my tutorial. If you like this video or any kind of sewing tutorials like this that go along with patterns for beginners, make sure you subscribe and like this video because it tells YouTube that this is what content that you like to see. You can go ahead and look here and click on either one of these videos to watch more. And before you go, mahalo.